Not that long ago, PlayStation put out this pretty well-praised game called Astrobot. Most people seem to have enjoyed this game. I thought it was a fun platformer. But it was made by Team Asobi, a Japanese studio, made up with a lot of people from Japan Studios. That was the name of it in Japan. Sony owned it. It was a hit maker. They made like Gravity Rush, Ape Escape. The Demon Souls remaster was one that they made. That one I really loved. Loved that one a lot. Missed the old one. Really enjoyed that one. And then this. I was surprised to learn that they actually absorbed Japan Studios. And while it worked out this time, it's kind of unfortunate that they had to be shut down in the first place. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Sony has moved a lot of their focus from Japan to the West, which I think hasn't worked out very well for them. In fact, I think they've kind of suffered for it a little bit. But, I mean, if you look at the charts, they're still number one. Now, what got me to want to talk about this was this interview from Shawn Layden. He's a former CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Also, he's had some pretty awful takes lately, like this one. I'm sure you guys remember this, all that Ghost of Yotai stuff. He was the CEO, well, ex-CEO, who came out and said, oh, if you don't like it, don't buy it, which is an awful stance to have. There's better ways to say something like that, but he got a lot of heat for that, and I think deservedly so. But he gave an interview to IGN Japan, and he said some stuff that I agree with and some stuff that I disagree with, but there's this focus here that Niche Gamer has on this comment, and I think it's pretty interesting. Former PlayStation CEO shares bleak perspective of Japanese gaming. And it's sad because, well, for a lot of reasons, Sony has taken a lot of this focus off of these Japanese studios. But let me share with you what he said. So, former CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Shawn Layden, shared what appeared to be a bleak outlook on the Japanese gaming industry in a recent interview. In the interview with IGN Japan, yes, they have a Japanese satellite, was asked for his insight regarding the current state of the industry alongside some events during his tenure at Sony. Most notably, he gave his opinion on Sony's Japan studio being merged with Team Asobi. It was a sad event, but not necessarily a surprise. Alan, the head of the Japan studio, Alan Becker, was a great guy, and he was trying really hard, but the legacy was too big. It's hard when a studio doesn't have a hit for a while, and the employees forget what it looks like. And then you start to forget how to make a work a success. In such a case, I think there are two possible paths. One is the path that they actually took. The other is the path of taking a very strict and drastic measures out of love. This may be what happened with Team Asobi. It's like pruning the branches of a bonsai tree. Cut the branches back close to the trunk, and then watch them regrow. And as they mention here, they've got a lot of great hits under their name: Ape Escape, Gravity Rush, Shadow of the Colossus, and more. And what was weird about that closure of Japan studio, it's such a Japan studio. I always want to call them Japanese studio, but they had just had that Demon Souls remaster, and from what I remember, well, actually it was more of a remake than a remaster, but from what I remember, that game did pretty good, and it was weird because they just shut them down right after that. And it's like, why are you doing this? You just have this great hit. It was a system sell. I mean, the only reason I bought a PS5 was to play that game. That was the game that I wanted the system for, because I love Souls games. And that is the first Souls game, Demon Souls. And then it became Dark Souls. But they had a huge hit, and they just cut it. And what he's leaving out there is when that happened, this was when Sony moved over to America and wanted to put a more of a focus on Western developments. I don't think that studio was closed because they hadn't made a hit. Sony kind of did this to themselves. So what he's leaving out there is how Japan did a lot of this to themselves, especially when it comes to the Japanese market. And when they merged Japan Studio into Team Asobi, that was during the time when they started to restructure and put more focus onto American audiences, and they started to consolidate everything into California. Like, their headquarters is in California now. It is not in Japan anymore. And that's because, for one, AAA gaming isn't quite what it used to be in Japan. They play a lot of mobile games and Switch. The Xbox doesn't sell very well there, and also the PlayStation doesn't sell very well there. It still sells okay. I'm not saying it's a dead brand there, but if you look back to what it used to be in Japan, it's a night and day difference. And I think a lot of that is on them. They've kind of given up their Japanese identity. And while they're still doing okay right now, I do think in the long term, they're going to hurt for that. So they did a lot of this to themselves. And they've even come out and said, while at the time Sony representatives claimed that Japan remains an important market, recent years have seen Japanese developers flee the platform due to growing censorship to appease global standards, which I think is very sad. It's sad to see things happen like that to a lot of these Japanese companies. And, trying to see them chase global Western dollars sucks. And I agree with him right here when he criticized these Japanese studios for trying to reach these global audiences. You got to stop that. Square Enix, they're not doing that anymore. They're leaving their ambition to expand development overseas, which I think will help make their games stand out better. So, because, a lot of the people that like Square Enix like it for what it is. They don't want it to be a Western company. And it's the same with Sony. I don't want them to be a Western-driven company. I want to go back to the good times. PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Hell, even PlayStation 4 had some good shit on it. But, like, PlayStation 2, it's kind of like a next level. We're getting all kinds of good shit from Japan then. It was awesome. But anyway, a little misleading here by him by saying, things are changing. And Sony changed. Sony did all this to themselves. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments. What are your thoughts? Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.